last week I was speaking with a friend of mine. He lives in the US. And his take on US real estate is that it's so stressful. He's never gonna buy another house for life. It's that the one house he got, that's it. No more buying for him, too much stress. And I'm like, that's why I started my channel, to take the stress off of people and help them go through real estate deals with as little stress as possible. There's going to be stress, this is going to be the biggest investment of your life. So that got me thinking, how about I do a video just comparing the two countries for those looking to migrate and those looking to invest. Funny enough, um, you might end up with two takes at the end of this video. Okay, it just depends on the camp you fall into. If it's investment, you may end up looking uh, at one country is better than the other. If it's for migration and opportunities in future, you might end up looking at one of these other countries. I don't want to be biased. I live in one of them, but you got to watch this video. Hope you're not going to be disappointed, but this is going to be a short video. All right. My name is Yemi. I deal with real estate in the GTA. That's the Greater Toronto Area. If you want to do anything like business with me, just buzz me. Let's see, maybe we can work together. All right. So when you mention US and Canada, there is one major difference that you see from the get-go, and that's the government involvement. In Canada, it's the federal government that takes everything downwards, to the provinces. The provinces would dictate to the regions, and it just goes down to municipalities. You don't find that much of that control in the US market. That's why US went, belly up in 2008. However, Canada did not experience that because of this restrictions that comes down from the top. When you talk about government restrictions, it leads you right into the banks. Okay? The banks they're just as controlling as the government. At one point you won't even know who's controlling who. When you talk about the monetary policies of the banks towards real estate in Canada, you have people paying more for their mortgages without actually renewing their mortgage. So this is the way it is. When you buy a house in the US, if you take the 30 years amortization, you have 30 years to pay whatever you agree to pay from the get-go of your mortgage. It's not the same in Canada. In Canada, they not force you, it's mandatory that you come in because your term is usually 5 years. There's the 3 years, there's 1 year, but usually it's 5 years. So every 5 years in your 30 years amortization, you have to go back to the bank. And the bank will now use the interest of the day. Imagine you got in at 1%, interest of the day is 3%. You have to now start paying mortgages at 3%. That's not the way it is in the States. You get in at 5%, interest goes to 2%. You can go to any bank. You walk into any bank and refinance your mortgage and get that 2% without having to be penalized for refinancing. If you try to refinance in Canada, you get penalized. And that's because the government have given the banks all these powers, even though it doesn't make any sense, even to those people that work in the bank. They work there, they don't even know why they do renewals. It's not refinancing. It's like you're being forced to refinance at a higher price. Sometimes you get lucky, the interest of the day is lower than the interest you got in at, but that's few and far between. So, government, monetary policies, the banks controlling your mortgage, refinancing and renewals and all that stuff makes a lot of people lose their houses. Imagine your mortgage is 2000, you're okay, you've already structured your finances around 2000, and then bam, you have to renew and interest rate goes up and now your mortgage is 3000. And you know from your finances, from what you make, from what you spend, you can't make 3000, you quickly have to sell your house or the bank is going to end up taking it. It doesn't matter if you've paid 5 years or 10 years on the same house. At the point where you can't make payments anymore, the banks will take your house. It's a foreclosure. So it's tougher in Canada because of all the control. Okay? Population wise, when you compare the GTA, for instance, you have more people actually squeezed up in one tiny location, you know, trying to all get the same amount of real estate available. So you end up paying more for less. Meanwhile, in the US, they're spread out. They have more free detached homes than in Canada. You find in Canada, especially the GTA, the higher you can go, the better. You have condos everywhere. When you go to downtown Toronto, it's like a condo galore. These are not office buildings. These are apartment buildings where people live in. They just give it a fancy name. They call it condos. And those are more expensive than some detached houses, even in Canada itself. Talk less of in the US. When you look at the cost of homes, it's actually about 20% higher to buy a house in Canada than it takes you to buy a house in the States. The process is similar, down payment, mortgage, uh, you shop for a house, you put an offer in, you close. That whole process is the same, but it's just the control around it. It's too tight in Canada for an immigrant. However, for an investor, it's like a paradise. You get a small, tiny condo, and your rent that you can charge people is way higher than the rent you can charge the people in the US. And because of the quantity available for this, homes in Canada, when it's time to sell, you find out the value on your house is like increased exponentially. You buy at 500, you're selling at 800 or 900 in a couple of years. We're not talking about 10 years holding a property. We're talking about in a span of 5 years, you could make $400,000. Yes, because the quantity of homes coming, it's way lower than the population growth. Okay, so you have more people chasing fewer real estate and just makes everything skyrocket. So for an investor, that's a paradise right there. Put a little money in, get, boatload of money out. And that's why Canada right now, the government, they've banned foreign investors. Even if you're not investing, as long as you're a foreigner, you don't live in Canada, you cannot buy anything. It was done 2 years ago, and now they've extended it for another 2 years because it's an investor's paradise in Canada. However, for immigrants, it's so tough to get a place. People call me, they've not even landed in Canada yet. They want to get something, and I'm telling them it's not even like that. If you don't have enough money to pay for a whole year, you can't rent anything. Because to rent, they got to check your paperwork, they got to check your credit, they check your work, employment history, uh, your employment letter, your pay stubs, and some landlord goes as far as asking you for your bank statements so they can verify your pay stubs being paid into your bank account. It's so crazy in Canada, that Anybody not here yet? You have to actually ask yourself, do I want to go through all this? Because when you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter is right there at the bottom with food and water and hair. You need shelter. And if you can't get a good place for a good price, everything is so expensive, you're going to move to a country and you're going to be looking for uh, maybe Salvation Army or a friend's basement to crash in because your money is not even close to what you need to get a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom. So everything is so tough and hard for immigrants, but it's an investor's paradise, like I said. Whenever you're deciding where to go between these two countries, it's the regulations, it's the banking, it's the population, But hey, the final decision depends on you. Hope this has helped you. If it has, share it and, let everybody out there get the best deal they can afford to get. Because all I want to do is see you at the top.